Canada supports Ukraine on its path to democracy. We at Alinea are proud to stand with Ukrainians as they pursue that path. Alinea International is a global development firm that partners with people worldwide to address challenges in their countries. With the financial support of Global Affairs Canada, we have supported implementation of more than 60 reforms in Ukraine over the last 13 years. We started our work by helping the Ministry of Justice establish a probation system for youth in Ukraine, which formed the basis for the adult probation system. Today, approximately 55,000 people who commit minor crimes are sentenced to probation rather than prison, giving them a chance to rehabilitate without being isolated from society. We prioritize reforms that directly impact citizens. For example, we worked with the Ministry of Social Policy to create community-based services for families with children, which have already reduced the number of children living in orphanages. We are convinced that every child has the right to be brought up in a loving family. In 2015, we supported the launch of an administrative services reform. We partnered with the Ministry of Digital Transformation to reduce the wait time, number of steps, and overall bureaucracy to make services more accessible for every Ukrainian, starting from the youngest. With our support, the government of Ukraine combined 12 different services related to the birth of a child into one service called eBaby. Now Ukrainian parents complete registration for all newborn services by filling out one form in the hospital. The healthcare system has undergone significant changes by digitizing health services, known as the e-health system. Alinea helped the Ministry of Health to develop an electronic platform for e-health, which resulted in the creation of such vital services as electronic medical records, prescriptions, specialist referrals, sick leave, and immunization, making them more accessible to every Ukrainian. In 2015, we contributed to the establishment of a new and accountable police service in Ukraine that was driven by public demand following the Revolution of Dignity. This included professional development support for serving officers and new recruits, building trust between police and communities to address local public safety challenges, and advancing the role of women in law enforcement. More than 12,000 police officers have been trained on a range of policing topics: bike patrol, psychological peer support, police tactics, community policing, leadership, domestic violence response, and youth engagement, and continue to serve and protect their communities. In 2018, Alinea International expanded into the defense and security sector. Our experts facilitated the drafting of 3 annual national programs under the auspices of the Ukraine NATO Commission. These documents, together with a nationwide communication strategy on Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic integration, contributed to closer cooperation between Ukraine, NATO, and the EU. We also provided expertise to support the Parliament of Ukraine and the Ministry of Defense in making important amendments to legislation governing the defense and security sector. This is far from a complete list of the changes we've helped Ukraine achieve over the years. Central to our approach is localization. We believe empowering local efforts and engaging local experts is the path to sustainable solutions. Funding from Global Affairs Canada has enabled the hiring of hundreds of Ukrainian experts who've been seconded to the government to make reforms happen. On February 24th, 2022, for us, as for millions of Ukrainians, everything changed. Today, our efforts focus on helping the Ukrainian government manage its work in a time of war. And this means challenges we'd never imagined, starting with the vast humanitarian need. In the early days of the war, we helped communities to prepare and care for internally displaced persons. We helped evacuate more than 3,000 persons in imminent danger and vulnerable due to age or health status. We stock shelters and help local and national authorities meet the critical needs of citizens for food and medical supplies. Since February 2022, we have procured and distributed emergency assistance valued at more than 15 million Canadian dollars. Thanks to Global Affairs Canada and other partners such as AFIA Foundation, the Canada-Ukraine Foundation, diaspora groups, and the private sector. Through this experience, we understood what was working and what needed improvement. We used that experience to develop an IT system called SmartAid UA to ensure that supplies donated by diaspora groups, the private sector, and NGOs are managed transparently and efficiently. Supplies delivered through SmartAid UA are inventoried in our warehouses when they enter Ukraine, sent to recipients according to their needs, and tracked through to delivery with confirmation of receipt to each donor. We engage Ukrainians at every step. The SmartAid UA Partners module helps match international donors and humanitarian organizations with Ukrainian CSOs that have demonstrated effectiveness and transparency. In addition to the humanitarian crisis, Ukraine is facing issues it hasn't since World War II, such as insufficient food supplies. We are helping Ukrainians take food security into their own hands and plant victory gardens for themselves and their communities. In just 2 months, individual Ukrainians have planted approximately 8,000 victory gardens, while the communities we work with have allocated a combined 850 hectares of land for community gardens. We have also helped schools adapt the educational process to war conditions by providing methodological and psychological support to teach children in wartime. With the millions of migrants moving within Ukraine and abroad, we have helped the government of Ukraine introduce a process to track displaced children in the state's care, both to ensure their needs are met and that they're eventually brought home. We've provided resources and information to vulnerable people on the risks posed by human traffickers and on where to get help, both in Ukraine and abroad. To sustain policing operations during the war, we procured relevant equipment and supplies. Our responsive programming has enabled the police to address conflict-related sexual violence and assisted the National Police of Ukraine to develop a peer support mechanism for police officers dealing with trauma. Given the urgent need for material support to the Ukrainian armed forces, we supply communications and security systems, clothing, and tactical gear. We also supplied non-lethal private donations from Canadians. We continue to work with the Ministry of Defense and the Armed Forces of Ukraine to optimize international acquisitions. We seconded specialized gender and legal expertise to support revisions to the National Action Plan for Implementation of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 on Women, Peace, and Security. Through this work and partnership with the Office of the Commissioner for Gender Policy, we are supporting efforts to seek justice for victims of conflict-related sexual violence. With the support of Global Affairs Canada, we continue to work for a better future for Ukraine. Stand with Ukraine. We thank our Ukrainian colleagues and our partners for defending Ukraine's sovereignty and making these achievements happen, and the Government of Canada for the funding that makes it all possible.